quick.
Yeah.
NDAA. That's to
North Defense Authorization Act.
that's a national security thing, right? We're not supposed to be using.
Yeah, that's at least the guise of it, right? Because it's like, I think it's more of like almost like a tariff sort of, tactic.
Restrictive.
Right. In the
So
same way, like European countries will put like some bullshit standard of like, you need to be able to drop a bowling ball on the top of like an American car. To see like how it deals with the impact in a way that European cars don't have to go through, and that's just a way to make sure that their domestic market doesn't get cannibalized by these foreign companies, foreign countries.
So you think it's more of an economic play than a defense play?
I think there's lobbyists, and I think there's people in the regulatory agencies like Congress that they think it's more national defense, and I think there is an element of it, right? But it's not so much of like the data as much as like it's a national defense problem that we don't have a manufacturing industry for electronics, right? And it's just like if China were to invade Taiwan here in like 2027, what are we going to be able to do to defend against the swarms of drones that China can just continually crank out? I mean, maybe we can go bomb, the Chinese factories like in mainland China, but like, again, that's like all out global warfare, and that's not, going to look pretty for the United States no matter what. But I think especially here in the next year or two, I mean, we are just like so vulnerable to not having an electronics manufacturing industry, and specifically, of course, being biased, a drone manufacturing industry. And I think the NDAA is a way to like, as much as it is like, hey, we don't want to use like Chinese radio components that could maybe take data and then send them back to like DJI servers or or Huawei, right? They were banned in a similar capacity.
Yep.
But I think a lot of it is it's not one or the other. A lot of it is to just make our electronics industry more competitive.
Can you real quickly refresh? NDAA is what is that? That's you're not supposed to buy from China, right?
Right. So yeah, there's basically, it's not saying China specifically, but it's saying specific companies in China like
Right.
DJI and Huawei, and there's a few others that are specifically blacklisted. If you make a product
Because they have ties
and
to the
right.
Communist Party or whatever
Exactly. And that's, my argument more from like a defense perspective, more than like data getting leaked back. And, DJI has made the claim like, hey, we've passed every audit that we've been put under. And it's like, that's fine and dandy, but there's no subpoena or warrant process like we have in the United States to where DJI can be the best actor, and could have been the best actor, all this time, behind us. But at any moment, the CCP could like just go take the CEO of DJI, the founder of DJI, and like, hey, you're going to disappear, or you're going to give us the information that we want, that you have of, the United States and their consumer base, or maybe some of their law enforcement agencies. And so, not to say that's not possible here, but at least, constitutionally speaking, that's not supposed to, happen in a way that they don't have those same sort of, laws or regulations or values in place.
Yeah, so fill me in on that, because I was actually in China 2 weeks ago. I just got back, and
they let you back? Holy cow! No.
I saw those drones, those DJI drones. And
Yeah.
I found out they're not allowed in the U.S.
Yeah.
It's considered a security risk here.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was interesting. So I'm not familiar with that.
It's similar to the Fitbit thing. Do you remember that controversy that happened with Fitbit?
So
vaguely.
Yeah. So Fitbits, like the health tracking devices, they were mapping out underground military bases because, they are GPS tracker units.
Oh,
and
wow.
So, those being manufactured in China, that gets back to the CCP. And now the CCP has all these maps of underground, top secret bases, right? And
Wow.
And so the same is being said about China. Of course, there's been stories of, Chinese foreign nationals, operating near military bases. And then even just like the everyday American consumer, well, hey, my DJI isn't connected to the internet, but when you do an update or connect it to your phone or whatever, who's to say that data can't be, brought back to DJI servers and then, commandeered by the CCP, right? And so that's a big concern within law enforcement agencies and the federal government. But it was funny, like right after that first big push to ban DJI drones took place, and like law enforcement agencies that received any sort of federal funding, they had to ground their DJI drones, at least supposedly. The NTSB, the National Transportation Safety Board, a federal agency, back when that Baltimore Bridge incident happened, they were using a DJI drone to use to do the inspection of the aftermath of the bridge.
Really?
And it's like rules for thee, but not for me. And so I think it is a lot of, again, just lobbying from companies like Skydio to be more competitive. And to me, like I do like the idea of a free market, by and large, free market society, especially here in America. Like, I want to beat DJI by building the best, easiest to use, most versatile drone, right? Not by, hey, they're not allowed to sell, and then so we become the best by default, right? However, it also isn't, a free market when they subsidize, China subsidizes their electronics industry, when we like subsidize agriculture and corn, more than anything else. And obviously we need to feed people, but it's like, one, is corn the best way to feed people? And then two, it's like, if we really value having our own electronics industry, we need to, subsidize our industry or take corrective actions if it's too late, to just bring in subsidies. Hey, we're going to have to put a temporary ban on DJI drones coming in the same way, like, we don't have Chinese automobiles coming in, because who would buy from an American auto manufacturer, let alone a Japanese or, German auto manufacturer now, when you can go get just as good of a Chinese EV at a fraction of the cost. And again, they're subsidizing a lot of those, and they're doing well from a sales perspective. But then if you also go look, there's a lot of like kind of shady practices between like the manufacturer selling them to the dealership then marking them as used, even though they're new vehicles, so they can sell them at a lesser price and move more inventory. And so that's why it's like, it's nice to say, we shouldn't be putting on tariffs on other countries. That's just hurting the American consumer. And in the short term, it is. But if we continue to go down the path that we are going and just outsourcing all of our manufacturing, we would be without a country here in another few decades, if not another century. And not maybe like totally like without a country, but like we would be basically what the equivalent of the UK is now, where they were once like the biggest empire in the world, and now, they are dependent on, as Starmer, their prime minister, was talking about how sick and tired he is of being dependent on Trump and Putin and like their tactics for energy in the UK. And it's like, do we want to be in that position to where we're dependent on China and, whatever allies that they have,
Wow. I had not heard that perspective from NDA and economic, but based on everything you just said, it makes so much more sense.
Yeah.
I think it probably plays into both, obviously defense as well, but I didn't even think about it from an economic perspective.
Yeah, and it's